January 5th, 1762. Prussia. The King of Prussia is about to kill himself. Frederick the Great sits alone in his war tent. On the desk in front of him, a loaded pistol. Next to it, a small vial of poison pills. He has both ready. He will use whichever comes first. He is 49 years old, but looks 70. His face is gaunt, his uniform hanging loose on his frame. He hasn't slept properly in weeks. The maps spread across his table tell a brutal story. Red markers show Austrian armies closing from the south. Blue markers show French forces from the west. Green markers show Russian troops from the east. Prussia is surrounded. Berlin has been burned. His army is shattered. He has drafted his suicide note. The words are clear. I will not survive the collapse of my fatherland. But here's what makes this moment extraordinary. While Frederick contemplates death in his tent, the largest war in human history is raging across 4 continents simultaneously. 4,000 miles away in Bengal, British forces rule 20 million people. 5,000 miles away in the Caribbean, French islands have fallen to British fleets. 3,000 miles away in Canada, the city of Quebec lies under British occupation. More continents are fighting right now than will fight in 1914. More European powers are involved than in World War I. Over 1 million people will die before this war ends. This war will decide whether North America speaks English or French. It will bankrupt France so badly that revolution becomes inevitable. It will create the British Empire and destroy it a century later. So why does no one call this World War I? To understand how we got here, we need to follow 2 men whose decisions will reshape the world. A Prussian king fighting for survival in Europe, and a British general dying of disease while attempting the impossible in America. Their stories will collide in the summer of 1759. One will die in victory, one will survive by miracle. But they're not the only story. Before we're done, we'll need to talk about a third front, the one that affected more lives than both combined, the one everyone forgets. India. Let's rewind 6 years, to the moment this global war begins. August 29th, 1756, Prussia. Frederick II crosses into Saxony with 50,000 soldiers. He's 44 years old, a philosopher who writes French poetry and plays the flute every morning. He's also a military genius who's about to gamble everything on one calculated invasion. His target is Silesia, a wealthy Austrian province full of coal mines and iron foundries. Frederick believes he can knock Austria out of the war in 6 months before their allies can react. He's wrong. European diplomacy has just pulled off the impossible. Austria and France, enemies for 250 years, have become allies. Their single goal is destroying Prussia. Russia joins them. Empress Elizabeth has ruled Russia for 20 years and expanded its power across Eastern Europe. She sees Frederick as both a religious heretic and a strategic threat to Russian influence in Poland and the Baltic. She commands the largest army in Europe. She wants Frederick destroyed. Frederick now faces 500,000 enemy soldiers with only 150,000 of his own. The mathematics are brutal. At the exact same time, 3,000 miles across the Atlantic, another war is beginning in the forests of North America. Actually, that war has already begun. 1754. 2 years earlier, a young Virginia colonel named George Washington surrendered Fort Necessity to the French. The first shots of the global war were fired here, in the wilderness, before any European king declared war. By 1756, the British colonies are losing. French forces control the interior of the continent from Canada to Louisiana. They have alliances with the Huron and Algonquin nations, who know these forests far better than any European. The British colonies are trapped along the coast. If they want to expand westward, they have to break French power. But France seems unbeatable here. In London, William Pitt becomes Britain's war leader. He has a radical strategy. Pay Frederick to fight France in Europe. This will tie down French armies so they can't reinforce their colonies. Pitt will later say it perfectly. America was conquered in Germany. It's the first truly global war strategy in human history, but it requires Frederick to survive. And right now, that looks impossible. November 5th, 1757, Rossbach. 21,000 Prussians face 42,000 French troops. Frederick's cavalry wheels around the French flank like a hammer. The French line collapses in 90 minutes. It's a humiliation. 10,000 French casualties, 500 Prussian. Frederick has just proven something terrifying. He can win when outnumbered 2-1. 1 month later, December 5th, 1757, Leuthen. This will be Frederick's masterpiece. 33,000 Prussians against 66,000 Austrians. The Austrians are dug in behind a village, their lines stretching for miles. Frederick should lose. Every military manual says you don't attack a fortified position when outnumbered. Frederick attacks anyway, but not where they expect. He marches his entire army behind a line of low hills, hidden from Austrian view. The Austrians think he's retreating. Instead, Frederick is performing the most complex maneuver in 18th century warfare. He's moving his entire force to hit the Austrian left flank at a single point. The Austrians realize too late what's happening. Prussian infantry crashes into their flank like a battering ram. The Austrian line folds. Regiment after regiment breaks and runs. By nightfall, 22,000 Austrians are dead, wounded, or captured. Prussia loses 6,000. Military academies will study this battle for the next 250 years. It's perfection. But while Frederick is winning in Europe, the British are still losing in America. July 8th, 1758, Fort Carillon, New York. The British attack a French fortress with 16,000 men. The French have 3,600 defenders. The British should win easily. Instead, it's a disaster. The British assault fortified positions in broad daylight. French musket fire cuts them down in rows. Over 1,600 British casualties. The attack fails. The pattern is becoming clear. In Europe, brilliant Frederick is winning with smaller forces. In America, the British are losing with larger forces. Something has to change. That same summer, a British officer named James Wolfe is making a name for himself. He's 31 years old, tall and thin, with red hair and a permanent cough. Tuberculosis is eating his lungs. Rheumatism makes his joints ache. He's slowly dying. But Wolfe has a gift for amphibious operations. At the siege of Louisbourg in June 1758, he leads troops ashore under fire and captures the fortress. It's the first major British victory in North America. Pitt notices, when Britain plans the ultimate attack on Quebec, the capital of New France, Pitt gives command to Wolfe. It's a death sentence disguised as a promotion. Quebec is supposedly impregnable. Wolfe accepts. He knows he's dying anyway. He has maybe one more campaign left in his failing body. He writes to his mother, "I know I shall never return." By early 1759, 2 dying men are preparing for their final campaigns. In Europe, Frederick is exhausted. 3 years of constant warfare. His army is shrinking. His enemies keep coming. He's running out of time. In North America, Wolfe is sailing up the St. Lawrence River toward Quebec, coughing blood into his handkerchief. He's running out of time, too. The summer of 1759 will decide everything. For both of them, for the war, for the world, and neither man will survive it the way he expects. Summer 1759. The war reaches its breaking point. 2 men, 2 impossible situations. One summer. Let's follow them both. June 1759, Quebec. James Wolfe stares at 300-foot cliffs rising above the St. Lawrence River. He's been staring at them for weeks. He has no idea how to capture the city sitting on top. At the same time, June 1759, Saxony. Frederick is staring at maps showing Russian and Austrian armies converging on his position. He has no idea how to survive what's coming. Both men are running out of time. Wolfe commands 8,500 British and colonial troops. Facing him, the Marquis de Montcalm has 14,000 French regulars and Canadian militia defending Quebec. The city is a natural fortress. Cliffs on the riverside, stone walls on the land side, impregnable. This documentary tells the story from the European and colonial military perspective. Indigenous nations fight on both sides. The Iroquois Confederacy provides scouts for the British. The Huron and Algonquin nations fight alongside the French, their land, their survival at stake. But their voices are largely absent from the military records we're drawing from. That's a limitation of the sources, not their importance to the story. July 1759. Wolfe tries a frontal assault at Montmorency Falls. It's a disaster. 450 British soldiers die in the mud. Nothing gained. The cliffs remain impassable. Wolfe's officers think he's lost his mind. Disease spreads through the British camps. Dysentery, fever. Men die daily. Wolfe himself is barely alive. He vomits blood most mornings. The tuberculosis is winning. He writes his will. He's 32 years old. At the exact same time, July 1759, Frederick is watching his own disaster unfold. Russian armies are marching into Brandenburg. Austrians are moving north. Frederick is being surrounded. He has 60,000 exhausted troops. They face over 100,000 fresh enemy soldiers. Frederick has to attack. If he waits, he'll be crushed between two armies. He chooses to hit the Russians before the Austrians can arrive. August 12th, 1759, Kunersdorf. 48,000 Prussians against 70,000 Russians and Austrians who arrived faster than expected. Frederick attacks at dawn. His troops charge uphill against entrenched Russian artillery. It's suicide. The Russian guns tear massive holes in Prussian formations. Infantry advances, falls back, advances again. The Russians don't break. By afternoon, the Prussian army is collapsing. Men throw away their muskets and run. Frederick rides directly into the worst of the fighting, exposing himself to enemy fire. His soldiers later say he seemed to court death. His horse is shot from under him, twice. He keeps fighting. By nightfall, 19,000 Prussians are casualties, nearly half the army, gone in one day. Frederick writes a letter to his ministers that night. I believe all is lost. I will not survive the collapse of my fatherland. Farewell, forever. He doesn't send it, but he keeps it. Kunersdorf breaks something in Frederick. He's no longer the confident genius who invaded Saxony 3 years ago. He's a man watching his kingdom die. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, Wolfe is also watching his campaign die. September 1759. It's been 3 months. The British have achieved nothing. Winter is coming. Once the river freezes, the fleet must leave or be trapped. Quebec will remain French. Wolfe calls his officers together on September 12th. He has one final plan. It's insane. There's a small cove called Anse au Foulon. A narrow path supposedly leads up the cliffs, barely guarded, according to deserters. Maybe unguarded, maybe a trap. Wolfe's plan is to land 4,500 men in darkness, climb 300 feet of cliff while carrying 60 pounds of equipment, and hope French sentries don't notice. If even one sentry raises the alarm, the war in America is over. His officers stare at him. This is madness. Wolfe's response is calm. The French think it's impossible. That's exactly why it will work. September 13th, 1759, 2 o'clock in the morning. Boats push off silently from the British ships. 4 o'clock. The climb begins. Men grabbing roots, rocks, tree branches, hauling themselves up in darkness. Any moment, a French sentry could look down. A voice shouts from above. Qui vive? Who goes there? A British captain, fluent in French, doesn't hesitate. La France! France! The sentry accepts this. His footsteps fade. He keeps walking. If he had looked down, American history changes. But he doesn't. 6 o'clock. British soldiers reach the summit, hundreds of them. By dawn, 4,500 men stand on the plains of Abraham behind Quebec's walls. Montcalm wakes to the impossible. A British army where no British army should exist. 10 o'clock in the morning. Two armies face each other. 60 yards apart, Montcalm attacks. He has no choice. The French advance, firing as they come. Too soon, too far. The range is too long. Wolfe's orders are ice cold. Hold your fire. 40 yards. Hold. 30 yards. Hold. The British can see individual French faces now. 40 yards. Fire. One devastating volley. Point-blank range. The French front line disintegrates. A second volley. The French line breaks. Men run. The battle is over in 15 minutes. But Wolfe doesn't see the victory. He's been shot 3 times. He's bleeding out on the ground. Someone shouts, "They run! The French are running!" Wolfe opens his eyes one last time. Now God be praised. I will die in peace. He's 32 years old. He's just conquered North America for Britain. He dies on the battlefield. The same summer, August, Frederick loses half his army. September, Wolfe wins a continent and dies. One man survives his disaster. One man dies in his victory. Frederick retreats to Saxony. His army is broken. His capital will burn next year. By 1761, he'll be contemplating suicide. But Quebec falls. Montreal falls the next year. By 1760, France has lost all of Canada. Britain is winning the world, but their ally, the man who made it possible, is losing everything. 1760. The war enters its 5th year. Frederick should be dead. Prussia should have ceased to exist. But somehow, impossibly, Frederick is still fighting. October 9th, 1760. Russian and Austrian troops occupy Berlin. They burn parts of the city. Frederick can do nothing to stop them. His army is too small, too exhausted, scattered across Saxony trying to defend 3 fronts simultaneously. But here's what the history books often miss. Frederick isn't just losing slowly. He's fighting one of the most brilliant defensive campaigns in military history. He can't win battles anymore. He doesn't try. Instead, he maneuvers. He keeps his army just out of reach. When the Russians advance, he retreats. When the Austrians pursue, he slips away. He's buying time with space and movement. The coalition can't pin him down long enough to destroy him. And that matters, because the coalition is exhausted too. France is bankrupt. The war is costing them more than their entire annual tax revenue. They're borrowing money they can't repay. The government is paralyzed. Riots are spreading through French cities. Austria is bleeding troops and gold. They've lost 60,000 men in 6 years. The treasury is empty. Empress Maria Theresa is beginning to wonder if Silesia is worth this price. Russia's army is victorious but stretched thin. Supply lines from Moscow to Brandenburg are breaking down. Soldiers are deserting. Discipline is crumbling. Even the winners are losing. And Frederick, through sheer stubbornness and tactical brilliance, has kept Prussia alive long enough for the coalition to start cracking. Then, January 5th, 1762, the crack becomes a chasm. Empress Elizabeth of Russia dies suddenly. A stroke. She's 52 years old. She's ruled Russia for 20 years. She's prosecuted this war with personal hatred for Frederick. Her successor is Peter III, and Peter is Frederick's greatest fan. Peter collects Prussian toy soldiers. He allegedly decorated his rooms with paintings of Frederick's victories. He's worn a Prussian uniform since childhood. His advisors think he's insane. Peter's first act as Tsar is simple: pull Russia out of the war. Immediately. Not just peace, alliance. Peter offers Frederick a military alliance against Austria. Frederick later calls it the miracle of the House of Brandenburg. But it's not really a miracle. It's the payoff for 6 years of defensive genius. Frederick created the conditions where one woman's death could save Prussia. If Frederick had collapsed in 1760, Elizabeth wouldn't have mattered. If he'd surrendered in 1761, Peter's succession changes nothing. But Frederick held on, barely. And when the political situation shifted, he was still standing to benefit. Austria, without Russia, cannot continue. France, bankrupt and exhausted, cannot continue. The coalition collapses. Peace negotiations begin in May 1762. February 10th, 1763, Paris. The Treaty of Paris is signed. Britain takes everything. All of Canada, all French territory east of the Mississippi River, Florida from Spain, dominance in India, control of Caribbean islands. France keeps sugar plantations in Martinique and Guadeloupe. French politicians actually think they got a good deal. Sugar is valuable. Canada is just snow and trees. They're catastrophically wrong. 5 days later, February 15th, 1763, Hubertusburg, Saxony. Frederick signs his treaty. Prussia keeps Silesia, the province he invaded 7 years and 100,000 corpses ago. Everything returns to where it started. Except Frederick has survived. Prussia has survived. And the map of the world has been redrawn. Show the world map with new borders. It's the largest transfer of territory in human history to that point. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. One more continent where Britain won. a story that's been unfolding in parallel with everything we've just watched. We need to talk about India. Now let's talk about that third front, the one we set aside to follow Frederick and Wolfe, the forgotten war that changed more lives than both of theirs combined. We've followed two men whose personal dramas shaped this conflict, a king contemplating suicide, a general dying on a battlefield. But while Frederick fought for a single province and Wolfe died for a frozen colony, a third British commander conquered more people than both combined. And almost no one remembers his name. June 23rd, 1757, Plassey, Bengal, 2 years before Quebec. The same summer Frederick was winning at Rossbach. Robert Clive stands with 3,000 men. Facing him, 50,000 soldiers under Siraj ud-Dowlah, the Nawab of Bengal. War elephants, French artillery, an army that should crush the British East India Company's forces. Clive is 32 years old, the same age Wolfe will be when he dies. Clive later claimed he attempted suicide twice as a young man. He said the pistol misfired both times. Whether this story is true or legend, it reveals how he saw himself, a man marked by fate. Now he commands a corporation's private army in a war for control of the richest province in India. Clive has turned the Nawab's general, Mir Jafar, promising him the throne if he betrays his commander. The battle lasts 11 hours, but there's minimal combat. Mir Jafar's troops stand idle. The Nawab's army collapses from within. By sunset, Clive controls Bengal. 20 million people now live under a corporation's rule. This is the scale that gets forgotten. Quebec had 70,000 people. The 13 American colonies had 1.5 million. Bengal had 20 million. More people lived under British control after Plassey than in all of Canada and the American colonies combined. For those 20 million people, life changes overnight. The East India Company will extract Bengal's wealth for a century. Famines will come. In 1770, an estimated 10 million Bengalis will die when the company prioritizes tax collection over food distribution. 10 million. More than died in the entire 7 Years' War across all continents. The seeds of the Indian independence movement are planted here in 1757, when a corporation conquered a subcontinent. This is why it's called a world war. Not just because Europeans fought in multiple places, but because the consequences reshaped 3 continents permanently. 3 fuses lit, 3 revolutions. Domino 1, America, 1775. Britain is bankrupt. 133 million pounds in debt from fighting a global war. They need money. The solution seems obvious. Tax the American colonies to help pay for their own defense. The colonists have a different view. No taxation without representation. They didn't fight the French and Indian War to be taxed by a distant parliament. 12 years after the 7 Years' War ends, the American Revolution begins. Britain loses the very colonies they bankrupted themselves to defend. For the indigenous nations of North America, the war's end brought only new threats. British victory meant westward expansion. The proclamation of 1763 briefly protected their lands, but within a decade, colonial settlers ignored it. The Iroquois Confederacy, Britain's allies during the war, would be torn apart during the American Revolution. Their gamble on the British had failed. Domino 2, France, 1789. France is even more bankrupt. The 7 Years' War destroyed their finances. Then they borrowed more to fund the American Revolution, seeking revenge against Britain. Now they cannot pay their debts. The government is paralyzed. The people are starving. The French Revolution explodes. The guillotine falls. The monarchy ends. All because France couldn't afford the wars they fought between 1754 and 1783. Domino 3, India, 1857 to 1947. The East India Company's exploitation becomes the British Raj. Resistance grows. The Sepoy Rebellion of 1857. The independence movement of Gandhi and Nehru. 200 years of struggle that began when Clive won at Plassey. So why doesn't anyone remember the 7 Years' War as World War I? No unifying name. Europeans call it the 7 Years' War. Americans call it the French and Indian War. Nobody connects them. It's overshadowed by what came after. The American Revolution, Napoleon, 2 actual world wars. No photographs, no film, It happened 70 years before photography, and it's complicated. Too many theaters, too many players, easier to forget than to explain. But the numbers don't lie. Over 1 million dead, 4 continents fighting simultaneously, 23 nations at war, the largest conflict in human history up to that point. From the French perspective, this wasn't the story of British triumph. It was the story of colonial humiliation that would fuel revolution and Napoleon's rise. From the Austrian perspective, it was a costly failure to recover Silesia. From the Russian perspective, it was a waste ended by Peter's madness. Every nation tells this war differently. We've told it from the British and Prussian military perspective, following the men whose decisions shaped the outcome. Frederick the Great lived another 24 years after his miracle. He never fought another war. He grew old and bitter at Sans Souci Palace, playing his flute, surrounded by his beloved dogs. When he died in 1786, he was buried in his vineyard, as he'd requested. People asked him about the war in his final years. He always said the same thing: a strange war, where everyone lost except the English. He was mostly right. Britain won the world. The British Empire spanned the globe. English became the language of global commerce. But Britain won Canada without winning its people. To this day, Quebec speaks French. The culture survived the conquest. And the world Frederick, Wolfe, and Clive created was won in blood and paid for in revolutions. This was the First World War, the one that everyone forgot. Until now. This is the War Maestro Chronicles. Forgotten battles, true stories, accurate history. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. Your support keeps these forgotten wars from staying forgotten. Thanks for listening.